Listen, I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road, let's camera action.
Good morning, everyone. We ask that everybody be safe in this little storm we got, but we wanted to continue with our show. This is part 2 of the Real Talk show, speaking on violence in New Haven. Very delighted this morning to be with you all as co-host. My name is Maurice Williams, for those who don't know me. My co-host Bernard Macklin is on my side. And we have 2 esteemed participants as panelists who we know very well about this topic that we're talking about. As we start out this morning, what I'm going to do is I just looked up some of the stats for New Haven, and so I'm going to quote them just so that we are clear where we're at in the city right now. Currently, as of July 7th, we know today's July 9th, but as of July 7th, it was reported that we have 16 homicides in the city. We also, as it states of the breakdown was 56% African American, 31% Hispanic, 13% Asian, and there were no white victims. Total non-fatal shootings is 59 in total. African American 80%, white 3%, Hispanic 17%. So we know the issues, we know the relevancy of data and numbers that don't lie and prove the points that it is what it is. And so we have some tremendous work to do in this city here in New Haven. This is not new work to us. This has been a recurring problem. For years. I can only go back to even when I was a teenager. There were some higher numbers than these, but we want to have real discussions, and that's why the name of the program is called Real Talk. So we've brought some panelists up on this morning for us to have this discussion about the violence that's going on, but we want to be solution oriented. And that's what this panel is up here trying to help come up with some solutions. We're not blaming any administrations because I have to be honest, as long as I've been living in New Haven, no matter what mayor was in that position, there has been murders. There has been violence. So it's not a blame game. This is something where we're trying to pull our community together, to rally together, to come up with solutions that can help with this ongoing situation. I'm gonna have my co-host introduced our panelists, and we're going to get this discussion started.
I am just overwhelmed with love for the 2 brothers that we have with us today, and I'm just going to let them come in and kind of give us just another twist on where they come from, the name of their organizations, and kind of what their organizations are doing currently. I had the opportunity just a few weeks back to sit with this brother and talk to him a little longer than I had before after the first call, and that's Sean Reeves. I just think Sean just brings a different genre to this conversation because he experienced it personally, what it is to lose a son amongst his own situations he's been involved in his past. But Sean, can you just come in right now and just kind of give us some background on kind of what you're doing right now and kind of how you started?
Again, thanks, Bernard. My name is Sean Reeves. I'm a New Haven resident, lifelong, now co-founder of an organization called Sport Academy. That word sport is an acronym. It stands for Street Poets Cipher Real Truth. We're a youth development organization. We teach chess and long-term strategy when it comes to addressing almost every need that has to deal with life. A little bit about my background. I come from the aspect of both sides of this fence. You know, I used to sell narcotics inside my neighborhood. Been incarcerated 3 times, mostly for gun violence and gun activity. Once for narcotics. Out of 20 years. Experienced homicide with the loss of my best friend due to the hands of somebody close to me. And that was in like 1994, or not, yeah, 94. So then in 2011, you know, after coming home in 2004, my oldest son was killed due to gun violence in New Haven at 16. Since then, you know, my plight has been a lot different. My vision and what I see inside my community has changed. All my old ideologies I've thrown out the window. And now I'm just looking for solutions to help solve these problems, man, because death by the hand of another man is not a natural occurrence, right? It's something that's a decision made by another person. There are so many extenuating circumstances tied to this violence epidemic that, you know, we can go on and on, but, you know, this is my plight, man, from now on, 10 toes down, man. But youth development is really the only way, because it's the longest term strategy to get this done. What happened yesterday, we can't solve today. What happens today, we won't be able to solve tomorrow. But over a 20-year, 30-year, 40-year plan, in 5 and 10-year increments, we can solve almost any problem.
Wow. And then I bring to you the distinguished, oh my God. I mean, when you think about the background of this next brother, kind of how through his own employment, through his own strategies, through his own experience, things that he brings to the table to this young and youthful environment, just to tell you how it really is, I'm going to bring to you now Leonard Jihad. He's going to kind of come in and just tell you a little bit about himself, what he's doing now, and kind of what got him started and working in this community.
Hey, good morning, brothers. Again, my name is Leonard Jihad. I'm Executive Director of Connecticut Violence Intervention Program. And we work with youth ages 13 to 24 that are engaged in risky activity in the community. So risky could be shooters, being a victim of community violence, so-called gang membership or group involvement. Anything that puts them or the community at risk are those that we work with. We also work with the reentry population, again, those that have a past or involved in conflict, again, that can compromise community safety. So our organization, we have a group of credible messengers. We call them credible messengers, but there were those who were in that life, who were in the streets, who have redeemed themselves, and now they want to help clean up community that they once helped tear down or even destroy. So that's our purpose, that's our mission, and respect to Sean, because you know, for him to continue the work and not retaliate, after burying a son. I don't even know how you take your next breath, brother. Much respect to you, and to the community, that's continue to be traumatized by community violence. And furthermore, I'm looking at the statistics, I'm looking at the numbers, and it's frustrating. But one thing that stands out in the numbers, I'm sure that we'll talk to, is that there were 4 females out of the 16 who were homicide victims in our community. So that's something I'm sure that we're going to talk about. And it also speaks about the code, the code of the streets and how we need to change the culture around using handguns, to solve our issues in the community.
Thank you so much. And I give it back over to our host.
Thank you, brothers, for your introductions, for your life experience and explaining where we're at with the work that you're doing. But Jihad brought up some points that we're going to start expounding on right now. We're going to talk about the code of the streets. We're going to talk about 4 females who are part of that victimization of the 16 murdered so far, which is appalling. And then we also want to talk about what are the next steps? What can we do as a community? Because as you remember in my introduction, we're not here to blame anyone. We're not here to point any fingers. We have to own these numbers, and we have to own these environments and these lifestyles, and we have to change them. That's up to us. This is one thing that we've been doing way too long, is blaming other people for what happens in our community. So let's just start out with a thought of, and I know Jihad probably can speak to this a lot, and I'm sure Sean has some points on this. Where are the guns coming from? Because as I look out, and I remember when I was 16, 17 years old, I had a big argument with a gentleman, and I really wanted to make it happen. I really wanted to clap at him. And when I went to my older, or what we call OGs in our community, I didn't have a pistol, but I was looking for one. And the OG said, Mo, we will come with you to have a fight with this gentleman and make sure you don't get jumped or anything, but we will not give you a pistol. So as we're hearing the prevalence of the shootings in our community, it always comes back to me thinking of, where do we feel that these guns, or what do we know about where these guns are coming from? Anyone can speak. And the way we want to do the format today, we're going to make it very easy. I want people to speak for about 2-3 minutes, and then we're going to take about 2-3 minutes to go round table to if anyone wants to add on to the discussion, so that the discussion continues to kind of flow. Okay, so if you chime in, we're going to give you about 2-3 minutes to chime in, and then we're going to ask for us to move this discussion if anybody wants to, not rebuttal because we're not in the debate, but if anybody wants to say anything in reference to what was said.
I'll just say real quick, with data, gun sales are up 80% over the last 2 years. So it's like a gun culture. Everyone wants to have a gun. They feel vulnerable in the community. They think everyone else has a gun. So, gun sales are up. Permits statewide are up 120%, or requests for permit applications are up 120%. So, and the biggest group that's trying to get guns right now are females, So I don't know if these guns, well, I can't say I don't know. I'll just say anecdotally, without any big data on that, a lot of guys are getting guns from the girls. Girls a long time been bringing guns in the clubs and everything, sneaking the guns in and stuff like that. The guys may have, a felony where they can't get a gun. Their girls, the record is clear. They're getting guns for the guys. And also, a lot of guns are coming from, gun shows and everything from the South and the Midwest. And also, the gun buybacks and all that stuff, that's good. But those aren't the guns that are coming to the urban community, with the buybacks. Those guns are mainly for old folks in the suburbs who kill themselves, who commit suicide with the guns. So, I've done a lot of buybacks and everything. I think any strategy, we could try to employ. But, when I look at the people who are turning the guns in, they're not people in the urban community. Black folks are not turning in their guns. They just don't. So a lot of guns do find their way in through drug transactions and everything else. They used to have, back in the day, I know they used to have the what you call it, the base head rentals. They have those with guns right now also. Someone that need drugs, they want dope. They're coming from the suburbs. They let someone hold a gun. They'll come back and get the gun, or even sell the gun, report it stolen. And I'll say law enforcement, local, state, and federal, they do a piss poor job of going after those folks, after they say, oh, my gun was stolen. Really? You've had a lot of guns stolen. They do it in the urban community, but not so much in the suburban community. So, as far as what I know and what I've been told, these are how a lot of the guns are coming into the community.
Great information. Sean.
And so now listen, this is me coming from that low end side of life, right? A lot of the guns that I purchased throughout my life came from middle class suburbanites that came into community purchasing the narcotics we have for sale, right? When they didn't have no money, they had other things to barter and trade. But this is one thing that nobody talks about. I remember probably around 1992 or 93, the store that's on the corner of Bassett and Dixwell. Those Iranians came and they opened up a store. Man, I must have bought 5,500 guns from them guys, man, over the course of a 2-year span. These guys ran more guns through the New Hallville community and into the hands of us young-minded people that didn't have the common sense to do the right things with them than almost any other person that I've known. And these types of things are still going on behind closed doors. Nobody talks about, but they're the same people that are allowed into our community given the means to open up these storefront locations, sit in our community, sell our kids all this poison, cigarettes, amongst other things, got them robbing and stealing for bikes and all of this stuff. But they're bringing those weapons in too, right? So let it all be told, fam. These things ain't just coming from these guys' girls and these guys' moms. They can't go in the store and buy 10 and 12 guns at one time. They don't even allow Black people to do stuff like that. Most of these guns are coming from those Midwest spaces where they're having those big giant gun those gun buying situations, auctions and whatnot, where, you know, again, these people with a lot of money, they can buy 100, 200 guns, bring them back to the communities, and then do what they want with them. You know what I mean? But truth be told, man, they're coming in from places that most people would never even imagine.
Okay, we want to welcome Chaz Carmen, who just joined the call, bring him up to speed where we're at, and get some of his thoughts too. We started out, the first thing I made sure we made clear is that we're not on this show to play a blame game to anyone. We are on this show to try to come up with some helpful solutions that are going to help our community. I gave the stats that we have currently up to July 7th, we're 16 murders. We broke down that, of course, the African-American community has owned a majority of those. And Jihad also brought out that 4 of them were females this year up to date, which is very appalling for us. So what we're starting to do is we're having a conversation. The first point that we were bringing out was where the guns come from. So you just came in on the tail end hearing Sean's explanation, which was parallel to Jihad's, a few extra differences Jihad brought out. But basically, they're not going in the stores. Some can get them from females. Sean brought up a great point. Female can only get many at a time. So they're coming from individuals that are having these bodegas in our communities and have access to those guns from where they come from, and allowing them to hit the streets through drug trades and barter trades and those type of methods. I just have to do something real quick for us. I have to announce that we are on the Tom Ficklin morning radio show, WNHHLRP 103.5. And I definitely have to give a big shout out to Tom Ficklin for allowing me and Bernard to host this show once a month. He is understanding that through Black media that we're going to be able to get messages out in our community to help these types of issues be talked about in a real way that will allow our young and other people to view programs like this and understand that these are the same people you'll see out in the streets the same way that you are out and about in the streets, and you can have a real conversation with us and join us in these conversations of trying to help rid gun violence in our community. So without further ado, we will give Chaz the same respect that we gave the other panelists, 2 to 3 minutes to speak about who you are, your organization, and what your mission is, and what you guys are going to do to help with this situation. And then we'll continue the discussion. Go ahead, Chaz.
Good morning, John. Sorry, I'm behind. A lot of things going on. So I'm the president of Ice the Beef in Waterbury, and we do several things, really focusing on younger generation, teenagers, young adults, and giving them good concrete program, building around conflict management, anger management, positive decision-making strategies for themselves. We are doing a GED program in Waterbury with some young men. We are now being called upon by the judicial, a judge in Torrington, the judge in Waterbury, to have conversations around how to help those kids in that area as well. And we also do awareness around gun violence. I want to jump in, if I can, on that conversation of, the guns. One part, like Sean was saying, is those auctions where you can be a young age and be able to buy a plethora of guns, then be able to take those guns and bring them around other neighborhoods and sell them, and make a couple of dollars off of them, sell them to our communities. But also, I would say some accountability for our older people, right? Now, I'm talking about elders, I'm talking about individuals who have the guns in our neighborhoods, who give them to the younger generation, right? Or sell them to the younger generation. at really, really low cost. A little bit of that is on us too. Those who are trafficking the guns, selling the guns, may not be a person who does not look like you who give you the gun. That person may have gotten it from a different individual. But when it comes down to the level of, I know when I was younger and I was able to get a gun, it was a person like me, who sold me the gun. You know what I mean? So a little bit of accountability on us as well, being the middleman between whoever's bringing the guns and then to distribute them into the neighborhoods. I think we also have to take a stance on ourselves, having more, not even courage, but having more like, you got to accept the fact that, you're doing that and stop. You know what I mean? The accountability piece, like, whoever it is that's selling the guns, you're making one of the guns, you got to be able to look at that as well as like, let me stop. Because if I stop and I'm selling it to the community, then it's not there, right? So it's that piece as well where we have to also take accountability for the situation, saying that, whoever bringing them in gives them somebody, and somebody is able to know people to be able to give it out to the neighborhoods, right? So that's a little piece on us.
Okay, appreciate that, Chaz. So it seems like for that particular topic that we brought up this morning, there was a lot of uniform answers. We understand that all young people can't go into stores and buy guns. And also we want to keep in mind the process does just not include young people. Chaz was helping you to see there's mediation in getting guns. There's suburban people who come in communities. I know back in the day when I was out in the streets, we relied a lot of time on Army veterans who have federal gun licenses that they go and they buy multiple guns. And then, as Jihad said, they report them stolen. So why is we not holding them accountable, and the police departments holding people accountable for claiming X amount of guns are stolen? Ain't nobody just coming nowhere where you have a gun, just taking it. So that right there tells you that that has some holes in the story. Nobody just didn't steal 10 guns from you. Where did you hold 10 guns that someone just came and stole them from you? So we have to really hone down on these instances and situations that we're going to need the judicial and the law enforcement to work harder for in reference to our communities. Because at the end of the day, we're going to have to own it, however we look at it. We're going to go into another subject that we were just touching a little bit on when we ended the first show, this code of the streets and what this code really means. Styles P has a great insert about that, but unfortunately, he's cussing a lot in the piece. So probably before we expose that insert, we're going to probably try to clean it up. It's probably going to be a part where we'll just give you some of the facts of what he was saying. But basically what his translation was, a lot of these young people, you're not built for this underworld crime life. It's a day-to-day life. If you're living an underworld crime life every day, there's definitely certain codes that you have to live by in order to survive in the streets. If you are a regular citizen, that you get up in the morning and you go to work to help take care of your family, it is your obligation as a citizen to protect your community. And that's the part that's not happening in our community. You're not willing to give information that helps to solve murders and cases so that we have protection in our community. So we're going to have to address that. So Chaz, before you got on the call, we're just trying to make sure we have a smooth flow. What we're going to do is everybody gets 2 to 3 minutes to speak on the particular topic. And then we can go around if anybody has something else to say or add on to it. So let's talk about this street code interpretation of the word snitching that will help individuals kind of understand what that means. And let's just have that quick discussion and see what comes out of that. So we can start, whoever wants to start, but you got about 2 to 3 minutes, kind of give your input, and then we're going to move on to the next participant. Jihad.
I'll just say, excuse me, shooters love the code. They like to hide behind that whole code of no snitching, because you're not arrested and you shoot and you get away with it, you're going to shoot again and you're going to shoot again and shoot again, because they have this so-called code of not snitching. So they have this cloud in the community about no snitching. And Styles P hit it, and I wish we could play it, but he was rolling up and cussing and everything else in there, but he hit it perfectly. If you are a normal person, if you're a working person, you're not in the streets, and you see something and it's tearing down the community, you have the right to say something, and it's not snitching. So snitching, as we know, is getting yourself out of trouble. Put the blame on someone else to lighten the load on you, and that's not what we're doing right here. No one's just telling anything. I'm 53 years old. I hear about a lot of things that happen in the community because people will tell, but they won't go to law enforcement. So in my official capacity, when I worked in probation, people would tell me, but it couldn't come from me. It would have to come from the person who actually saw it. And people aren't willing to do that. The principal at Hill House back in 2014 called me to the school. A young girl was sexually assaulted. And she says, I know who did it. I want to tell, but I don't want to snitch. I said, little sis, it's not snitching. You were victimized. You have to tell, or that person is going to feel comfortable to do it again to someone else, or maybe even come back to you and do it again. So, we have to get beyond that. And I'll just say there was a homicide earlier this year where a female was killed by her her child's father in Fairhaven Heights, in a predominantly white area. Shot her in the car, drug her out the car, shot her again. The neighbors saw everything. They reported to the police. And actually with that, he took his child who was in the car seat the baby was a year old. Within an hour, because of the information that they got from the neighbors, he was placed under arrest, and he's in jail right now. He doesn't need to be in our community, because if he wasn't caught and the neighbors didn't say anything, he'd be out here probably doing it again, coupled with his mental health issues. So we have a right and responsibility to do that. But I'll just say the shooters love it. They love this so-called code of not snitching or whatever, and we have it totally wrong.
Great information. Right. I like the way you put that. You have the right to inform because you're trying to clean your community. And as we saw and heard, 4 of the murders this year were women. The last one, she was only 22. She hasn't lived her life. She hasn't done anything, and it was taken away from her. That is not right. And so as an individual and community, you have to feel that that is not right. Okay, so next participant who wants to speak on that.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that.
Okay, Sean.
And again, like I said, because I come from both facets of life, during the time when I was living in life, I understood the code, and what they're actually living by in these streets right now, I don't even understand that code. That wasn't what the street code was, right? Women and children are never to be harmed by the activities that we produced outside in the streets as men, right? There were a lot of different things that we didn't do during the times when school was let out. We would shut down the blocks long enough for the kids to get to and from that had to walk by us and things like that. So they're not living by a code. What they're dealing with is a lawless land. It has no code, and this is why it's out of control. Now, that word snitch, on that side of the fence, I could understand it. I've had conversations with a lot of my peers these last few weeks, months, and years. I have a 14-year-old daughter I can't allow to go sit on the porch or walk to the store for fear that anything might happen to her. I'm a father now. I'm no longer selling no drugs. I'm not hustling. I don't care for anything that has to do with that type of situation because that's not a reasonable code. It's not a responsible code. It doesn't make any sense. I have a protection policy that I have to instill for myself and my children, my nieces and nephews, and my neighbors' kids around me. So when I see something that's heinous, I'm saying something. And I don't expect to be retaliated in any shape, form, or fashion. I'm not in that lifestyle. I'm not a snitch. I'm a community member, a registered business owner with 2 businesses. I'm paying taxes. I have a nonprofit organization, co-founder of, and we're helping take care of these babies now. My responsibilities have changed. I'm now responsible to my community members and the embetterment and the empowerment of my community, no longer responsible to the detriment and the destruction of my community because I was living in a lifestyle that wasn't productive. And I just didn't realize it at the time.
Something that Sean just said that just stands out to me is what he said. Now he's a community member, no longer of that lifestyle. And that lifestyle has been the conditioned lifestyle in most African American and Hispanic neighborhoods way before even Sean's time, before he even was a zygote in that community. Nobody's really changing, tremendously changing the condition of being conditioned even before we were there. But it just translates to one generation to the next until we really change the flavor of this conditioned mentality. Is going to continue on to the next generation. Because even though we're talking about it, there's still some people that's just our age right now that still feels that that conditioned policy that we have in the neighborhood is the way it should go. And if you step outside, we might come holler at you. You know what I'm saying? They still have that mentality until we can get in their heads as well, because they're influencing these young kids that this behavior is okay. And if they feel the OGs feel that way, guys like us that have been and hung out and did what we did in our neighborhood, if we're not the ones getting to our boys, because some of those guys are friends of ours still to this day. If we can't get to them and really begin to recondition their minds to help recondition the generation and generation to generation, so forth. That's why I love what Sean said, that it's going to be a 20 to 40 year plan, because you have a lot of reconditioning of flavors from one generation to the next to change that mentality in order to make a difference. That's where it got to start.
And I just want to make a quick quote from my partner, because, you know, one thing he always does is he talks to me constantly about this process, because he has to, you know, we have to understand it's a process. And some processes are long-term, some of them come quick, but it's a process nonetheless. But, you know, he said, we're almost in a point where we have to really recreate a man and a female in our community, because we have to wash ourselves of all the lies and all the rhetoric and all of the beliefs and the systems that we've put in place on our own minds now, right? That contribute to all of our detriment. We speak more death than we speak life inside of our community, with language, with the, you know, with the music that we listen to and everything. And in order to really do what we need to do, it's almost like we're creating people one at a time. And, you know, again, I only say it because I had to recreate myself, everything about myself and who I was, in order to be here after 10 years, once my son was killed. Because the only thing on my mind was murder, murder, and more murder. That was it.
All right, Chaz, you have an opportunity, Chaz.
So I love what you said about the 40 years. I would even extend that to 100, right? And that's why all our organizations, no matter what we do, we have to stance on the younger generation, right? And sowing those the younger generation. One thing we do talk about when we talk to young adults and teens is explaining what snitching is, right? The term that you people love to use, right? Understanding that we decide together to go do a crime together. We decided it, and we went and did it. And then you just wasn't fast enough when when you started running or whatever it was. You just couldn't get away fast enough, and then you decide to save yourself and say, "I want to tell them everything because I'm saving myself." That would be the term is used. If someone gets shot in your neighborhood, you witness something or you witness a crime, and you had nothing to do with it, that is not snitching. I say that's being a productive citizen of your community, because you're trying to save your community. And, as these things happen, these shootings happen, or losing our queens, somebody got to say something. And you're definitely not being a snitch because you didn't plan it, right? So we try to explain the term, understand the term. I'm going to go a little forward. I don't know how people feel about the legalization of marijuana, right? But I know when I was younger in New Haven, we had the term crackheads, addicts all over the place. You had every corner, you find 10 men, young boys, selling drugs on every freaking corner. And when the car pulled up, 10 people ran to the car and tried to get their one little nugget off at that car. The kids these days don't have that. That has changed to the point where if you are a drug dealer, you're selling weed, you're selling marijuana. Now that it's become legal, what you going to do now? You are now a legal business owner. And now you can have aspirations to owning a whole business doing that. So that's going to negate a lot of the little drug dealers who think, where are they finding the addicts at? It was addicts everywhere in New Haven at a point in the 80s and early 90s, right? You got to find those people now. You got to look for them. You got to have a connection to get these people who want to get those drugs to you on a caliber to be able to make enough money to sustain something, right? Other than that, you're riding around selling weed, and you're a drug dealer, and this brings you to getting a gun, and so trying to live this life you see on TV or live this life you hear in music, trying to live this life that is really, now that marijuana is legal, you're no longer a drug dealer. That's going to negate a lot of young adults and kids and people who got out and it's selling weed and just to have that sense of still being a drug life. You get out of jail and some people still want to have a dealer life, but they don't want to do the hard stuff. They want to just sell weed, right? Now that that's legal, that cuts all that out. So in the next 50 years, something like that, that's going to do another spinoff on the drug dealer life now. That unless you got heroin or you got crack, something like cocaine, that's the only way you're going to be able to be a drug dealer, because selling weed is not a drug dealer anymore, right? So I just say that because in the future, that'll negate a lot of the young individuals who just sell weed and they're a drug dealer, right? Right, Charlie, jump in.
I'm sorry, I mean to interrupt you, bro. I was gonna wait till you finish. I was just thinking, I just wanted to get this out, regarding the code. And I think about the biggest gangsters, Scarface, the movie Scarface. He had a code. He was supposed to blow the car up. There were kids in the car. He wouldn't blow the car up. There's a code. If you watch Omar on The Wire, Sunday mornings, free pass. He's walking his grandmother to church. You don't shoot. Even if they want to kill Omar, you don't shoot. You don't endanger the community or the elders in your community. There's a code. I remember I did a pre-sentence investigation one time, and I opened up in the investigation, someone killed someone on West Division Street, Easter Sunday in the morning. And I was talking about how they broke the tranquility of Easter Sunday. You don't shoot on Easter Sunday. People are getting out of church and everything. And this guy made the whole community vulnerable. And the judge says, you can't evoke religion. I said, it's not religion. I said, it's the culture. It's a culture and it's a code of the city, and the culture of the city, and also the code of community violence and everything else. You don't shoot when you're going to endanger somebody. And we got 4 young ladies who are dead this year. 2 were shot in the head, 1 domestic. Well, 2 were domestic, actually. And people are almost like shrugging their shoulders. There's a young lady and another domestic who was shot by her boyfriend, shot in her breast because she moved on. Availability of guns, and then the culture is like, you can just shoot. And I'll tell you something that we discussed in law enforcement. When the young boys start acting wild, or there's an area of New Haven that starts acting wild, what the law enforcement does? They go after the money. So they go after the guys that are making money. They said, listen, we're going to bring full enforcement. You're going to get all the attention unless all the violence stops. So they go talk to the young heads and said, listen, knock it off because you're messing up everybody's money right here. We know drugs are everywhere. They're on Yale's campus, Greenwich, Madison. Drugs are everywhere. They know they can't stop drugs. They're not even trying to stop drugs. They're just trying to stop the violence associated with it. These guys right now, the ballers, the dudes that are making money, they're telling me, they said, Jihad, these kids ain't listening. They ain't listening to us anymore either. Do something with these kids because now they're messing up our money. So law enforcement's like, what do we do right now? They need the community's help because, they say you can't arrest your way out of certain things. I know who the kids are who are shooting. I keep hearing the names over and over and over again. They're still in the same cars. They have old beef from when they were incarcerated. They're coming out with the same beef that was never mediated, and they keep going back and forth. So some people just need to be taken out of the community.
So if I may jump in there, like he talked about the scar faces and, and those kind of things. In the 90s, model of a dealer, et cetera, was that you wanted to be Tony Montana. You wanted to build an organization, a conglomerate. You wanted to, if you wanted to do this thing, the mindset was, how do I become the biggest whatever, right? That's not the mindset now. If I sell a little bit of weed, I'm a drug dealer, and that's it. That has totally changed. So that code is not there because there's no, head honcho running this whole block. It was houses you can go buy drugs in, weed houses, crack houses, people outside the blocks, a person watching this over here, watching the jungle. They were on a roof. It's like, it was different. A mindset of they want to be this Tony Montana, this Al Capone, this big situation, organized crime situation, and that's not there anymore. So there is no code to that. There is no kind of if Tony Montana said no kids, that's it. Nobody do that, or you gonna be in trouble, right? So this generation doesn't have even that mindset to build this kind of situation. So there is no code, there is no leader. It's all do whatever we want, and I think I'm this.
I believe. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I think that we're bringing it to a nice point, but I'm also being conscious of our time. And you guys always know that we have this opportunity to continue this discussion. But I want to bring it kind of to the solution oriented. One thing we're hearing is a culture. We're hearing an environment. It goes to infrastructure and it goes to accountability. So those are the points we want to start driving to. Also, what we're going to have to concentrate on our next call is we're getting several comments in the chats. People are paying attention to this. This is what we wanted. And so now we're building a camaraderie of people who want to talk about this issue in a real sense. A lot of times we're in spaces where people can't say how they feel. Politically, this isn't the correct thing to say. That's why the name of the show is called Real Talk. We're talking about real, live, day-to-day issues. But we have to get toward how do we help get an infrastructure that can help these young kids look at that, of course, from when the days we were in the streets, it is totally different. Chaz brought up a main point. We were making $100,000 a week, and there was hardcore drugs being sold. Now the environment has changed, but how do we still keep the violence away from whatever way a person has to make money? Of course, we're not advocating for anyone to be in the streets, but we have to deal with the real things that there are people that are going to be in the streets. How do we allow an environment that helps that individual understand that the same thing that you're doing, there are legal aspects to it. There are packaging companies you can start. I mean, Carlton Highsmith started a successful packaging company and is a multimillionaire. He comes from local communities. So how do we change mindsets? Because that's the biggest thing I'm hearing is the mindset. How do we help to successfully change mindsets the same way Sean took and changed his mindset, where he could have been out here shooting at people because his son was murdered? And that's the push we want to kind of move into. We got about 11 to 12 minutes. So everybody's going to get 2 minutes. So let's talk about how do you help to change mindsets, especially after hearing Jihad's comment, where those individual street people who are really serious about their money are saying the young people aren't even listening to them to stop the violence so that they can make the money that they're trying to make. So how do we change mindset? Yeah, and Bernard, before we start, you can go ahead.
You know what? The thing when me and Maurice Williams first talked, we talked about our past and things that kind of happened along the way. And something I said to him that stays with me even now, when I go to community meetings and we holding these conversations, and after the conversation, nothing changes. And the thing is that when you talk about, all these programs they bring, everything has a 550 mentality. You're not going to change the minds of these young people that are making more than 550 hustling and thinking you're going to give them a job over the summer for 550 and you're going to change their mentality. 550 is not going to buy some LeBrons. I'm just saying it's not. And so you have to give them ways to show them how to take, if they're going to hustle your way out of hustling. And how do you do that? Just what Sean did. He started a business. He started collaborating, doing different things in order to make an income and a life for him and his family. You have to show these young people that actually, let me show you how to take this little $5.10 that, or the money that you're making, the $200, whatever it is, and let me show you how to invest that money and let it flip legally, where you don't have to sleep with one eye open or wondering who's gonna run up on you when you're out in the streets. You have to begin to show them that there's a better way of living, even if they have to stay within the community that they're in. Because not everybody's going to move to the suburbs. To be very kindly, I can care less about living there. You know what I mean? I'm okay with how I'm living now in the place that I live, right on Dixwell. So it's not a big problem for me. But what I want to do is change the mindset of the young people so I can live peacefully just like them. I mean, just like everybody else that lives on the outside. I want that peace, but you have to show them, recondition. And until you recondition a violent war, a violent war field that we have within the community, nothing's going to change. We can sit here and talk all day. It's just words on paper. You know what I'm saying? I'm tired of the words on paper. I want to see actual change. And it's not it begins with talking, but then just like you said, Mo, what is the solution to the talking? You have to show these young people a better way of living, that they can still have a decent life and have good things, because that's what their mindset is. When you're 22, you ain't thinking about the things we think about at our age now. What you're thinking about is the next pair of jeans I'm gonna buy, the next pair of shoes I'm gonna have on, the clean ones, the ones that just came out. Well, I gotta show you how to get them legally. I got to show you how to put a plan together where you can buy those shoes. If that's what your mindset is, how you can go and buy a pair of jeans and a nice coat and some shoes and look fly with the glasses and the shades, but you're not going to jail and lose it anyway. That's that's part of the solution, is what he's doing right now with his sports academy and what Chaz is doing. One thing I like about Chaz is when he put on that performance of Romeo and Juliet, he need to talk about that, because we think that's corny. I don't think it's corny. I'm a thespian, a real thespian. You can call me a thespian or a hood. I can be both of them. But at the same time, I'd rather be the thespian. But somebody opened that up to me, and I jumped in it and found that actually it was pretty fun. And I stayed with it throughout my life. So I ended up giving up my other part to go to a part that's actually going to make a difference in my life. And we have to open up those type of programs like Chaz is doing in Waterbury and here in New Haven to show that it's not corny. Actually, it can do something for you and take you to places you've never seen in your life. Because most of these people ain't never been out of New Haven, never seen anything outside of New Haven. New York, 40 minutes up the road, and most of them ain't never been to New York. How was that? So we have to change the flavor. That's why I start.
And like you said, the amazing, if I may, the amazing thing about that was that these kids that did that Romeo and Juliet, they loved it. You know, they grew to like love it. And even before we went out on stage, we had a mic check, and each kid had to step up and do their mic check. And if you've never seen a Shakespearean battle, I'm going to create one of those, because it was a battle. As you stepped up to that microphone and you delivered your lines, you were like boom, 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 and everybody was cheering behind you, and everybody just got their turn coming. It was like a Shakespeare battle, and I was amazed at the moment of that. But you know, we got to understand too that there are 20,355 students in New Haven. If Sean takes 300 and John takes 300 and I take 300, all of us on this call take 300, that's still a small dent into the number of children that are being services just in our public school. That's only New Haven Public Schools, right? So you got kids at Amistad, you got other places too, right? So still, that's the process, right? We need to continue that process of the younger generation and positive decisions and leading them in the right direction. But we do need more orgs to sprout, right? Ice to Beef, we're not about like capture these nuggets of greatness and goodness and not giving it to somebody else. We have no problem helping you start the same thing we're doing, and you do wherever you do it at. But there's too many kids, 20,000 kids. There's no way us five up here, you know, us four up here can connect with every one of them. Too many children. And, you know, so we make the dents we make at the best of our ability, but we have to understand there's a lot of students that, you know, so we need more orgs to sprout, more kid orgs to sprout, and continue to keep happening. And we then got to get out the mindset of who getting what, who getting it. Forget all that. Let's help each other sprout and whatever kids they have, whatever kids Park and Rec are using, YSD are using, you serve whoever. We need more organizations to sprout up because there's a lot of students to make the change happen. So.
Okay, guys, it's so funny how time flies. And so we created a situation where I can always say, and Sean knows I'm using this terminology a lot lately. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So we're putting together a coalition of individuals that want to be more serious about attacking this gun violence situation. We've had a lot of people on the chat. Some people even on the chat said more people need to be part of this conversation, but we guys got to understand we have to start somewhere. We started with this small panel. We can expand it. We can do it to community meetings, bigger, larger meetings of people, but it has to mean that everybody wants to be accountable and want to be a part of the solution. We don't want people coming involved that want to blame people and blame administrations and do all that. That is not productive. One thing Bernard says, we're in a lot of meetings, but what does those meetings produce? So we want to be goal oriented, and Sean has nailed this in my head. We have to have a plan. So many times these young people don't have a plan. When they get up in the morning, you ask them a question, hey, what are you doing today? I'm gonna be chilling, I'm gonna be doing this. You don't have a plan. If you don't have a plan to succeed, you will fail by default. And so now what we're going to be trying to do is put together collaborations. And Chaz, you hit it on the head. If you're talking about 20,000 students, definitely 4 people can't do nothing with that. But if we start and we continue to do things like Sports Academy, Jihad's program, your program, and we expand those with connections, this stuff happens. And so we're on a good start. This is our second real talk discussion about this issue. We've covered a lot of good information on this call. We'll continue to do this. I was told by Tom as many times I want to do it on violence prevention because of how much of a pertinent problem is. We can continue to do that. This can be a monthly call, and we can have it to where eventually, I'm sure, in talking to our producer, we can have call-ins. So we'll work on all of that. But remember, we're starting to chip at the problem, and we're going to make sure that we stay accountable to the people and get more people who want to collaborate us to move forward. So we're about coming up on the end of time. Actually, I enjoyed this discussion. This was a great way to kick off my Friday and to start my weekend of holding people accountable. So we talked about the no snitching policy. We talked about creating environments that change the mindsets of young people and people involved in the streets. But we also understand the realization of we need resources to help pull them out of the streets. And that's where our business community, our politicians, our people that are in law enforcement, our people that are up at the state creating policies and all that. We got to get all these people involved and at the table to understand this is a real problem that it takes everybody committed to solve. It's not 1 or 2 people. I thank you guys. I really appreciate you being on the show and continue to work with me. We're going to keep working on this. But as we know that this is a multi-pronged problem that we need everybody's accountability and everybody hands on, how Sean always say, hands on deck. So let's make this happen. I hope you guys have great weekends and be safe. And we'll be back together real soon. Thank you guys for your participation.
God bless you.
Thank you.
This is Harry Droz, and you're listening to WNHHLP.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains, haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up, fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road, let's camera action.